Well, this year has taught me the importance of human connection.
This year, the strains and difficulties placed on our relationships and communities has emphasized for me again our profound need for each other.
This year has taught me the value of living with others in community, but also the damage that can be done when that is taken away from us.
This year has come up with a lot of challenges and lessons. I had to adapt in changes that have come, that the world will not be normal as we used to say, that all this has come as a result that the global is changing and we also need to change.
When the pandemic started, this taught us to be responsible and to be also to be clean, to maintain our hygiene.
It taught me how to be responsible, like now, how to take care of myself.
This year has taught me to be hopeful and optimistic despite the difficult times.
This year has taught me a lot about priorities. I think we all give a lot of time and energy to things that don't really matter, and we lose sight of a lot of the things that do.
This year has taught me that with adversity also comes opportunity.
This year has taught me resilience.
What this year has taught me is that my faith is smaller and that God's faithfulness is far greater.
This year has taught me to be grateful in all seasons.
This year has taught me to go with the flow.
This year has taught me that you can't have hope without faith.
This year has taught me that God is faithful in the midst of uncertainty, and that makes me hopeful for the days ahead.
This year has taught me that humans have a deep capacity for love and compassion.
This year has taught me that we can do hard things, especially when we come together.
Good evening and welcome to our special online event, The Power of Together. My name is Kate Ten Harmsel and I serve as the Executive Director of Community. For those who are new, we work hand in hand with East African communities to break cycles of poverty and build sustainable, equitable futures. For the last 14 years, we've worked alongside local leaders who have led our vision, shared their expertise, and invited us into their communities to help provide access to basic needs, a quality education, and a sustainable income. While our mission has always been focused on long-term sustainable solutions, this past year has required us to shift our focus and respond to the global pandemic. We first met virtually 1 year ago. The first cases of COVID-19 had just been reported in Ethiopia and Kenya, and government restrictions had shut down local markets, leaving thousands of people facing starvation. We knew that time was not on our side, and so we proactively mobilized and went straight to the household level, asking, what do you need and what are your fears? We learned that entire communities did not know what was going on because all of the information was being published in English. And so we trained 15,000 community members in their native language on COVID-19 prevention. We learned that the most at-risk households didn't have access to hand washing stations and soap, and so we provided those resources. And we learned that thousands of families were facing starvation because of local markets closing and food prices skyrocketing. And so we provided over 670,000 meals over the course of 8 months until the markets reopened. Our ability to respond so quickly was because of two things. One, our relationships with our East African partners, donors, and volunteers. And two, the generosity that you showed in a time of need. Our event last year kicked off our COVID-19 Response Fund, which raised over $50,000 and literally saved thousands of lives. Tonight, we gather again with a lot more perspective on the short and long-term impacts of COVID-19 in our partner communities, and prepared to shift our efforts back to development work and address the two major crises that the pandemic created: a loss of income and a loss of food security. Tonight, we are raising funds to address these needs in 3 villages in Kajiado, Kenya, which will impact over 20,000 people. Our $50,000 funding need will close the funding gap on 4 critical projects, including access to clean water in Enkutoto Village and access to a sustainable agriculture project in Enkutoto, Alamuni, and Inkusiran villages. These agriculture programs will create new, more resilient sources of income for the women in the villages and build a community that is food secure and able to provide for their own needs when disasters occur. I am excited to share also tonight that just like last year, we received news on Friday that we have been awarded a $15,000 grant from the IMF to help assist in completing the very projects that we're fundraising for tonight. So along with the IMF, we hope that tonight you will choose to partner with us so that we can ensure that no family in Enkutoto, Alamuni, or Inkusiran faces starvation this year. The giving link is in the event description and is also pinned in our comments. Now, let's hear from some of our community members. A couple of weeks ago, we sat down with our founding partner, Pastor John Karoka, and our country director, Duncan Sakimpa, to hear how COVID-19 has impacted their lives.
Hello, Pastor. COVID has really affected our community for
Yes.
the last 1 year.
COVID has changed everything. And we are now a place we call a new normal.
I can say that the impact of COVID in our community has really been devastating. Besides the loss of jobs, the loss of livelihoods, closure of markets, suppressed supplies, hiked prices, restriction of movement, and again, the pressure it has had in our education system. The number of teenage pregnancies that were reported, the girls who went back to school, about approximately 20% did not go back.
Yes. After COVID, all these restrictions that had come, keep the social distance, don't go, don't visit your brother, don't visit your sister. And you know, as a Maasai community, we have no boundaries.
Sure.
Maasai in Tanzania and Maasai in Kenya, we all live in a communal life.
Sure.
But after COVID, these things have really changed. You cannot move away. You cannot cross over to Tanzania. You cannot take your cattle. You cannot take your goat to your brother. You cannot even shake their hands. You remember that we can sit together, take some tea together, take some milk. But now with this COVID thing, you can't even take tea, you can't take milk in the presence of your people. It has really brought a lot of frustration.
Africans are known for, enjoying social gatherings.
Yes.
Doing events, singing and dancing. But then today we are told, keep social distance, put on a mask, wash your hands, sanitize all the time. And that has not been very easy to adapt for an African sector. Before COVID, we had our own challenges as a community. We had our own challenges as a society in East Africa, challenges of lack of water, challenges due to access to education because of school fees and funding. And when I look at COVID, it has actually now, even deepened that particular, kind of luggage or load on the parents. But I'm happy and hopeful because we have a caring partner.
Yes.
We have caring partners.
Yes.
And friends. And remember last year around April, we did our first emergency response to prevent COVID amongst our communities. Through the generous donation of sponsors and partners, we were able to distribute about 300 hand washing stations.
Hand washing
about
stations.
300 families were covered, with hand washing stations. There has been this directive of people people should wash hands as a way of prevention, not preventing transmission of, COVID. And the partners came in handy. And that time I saw a ray of hope that at least our communities were starting to abide by the standards, by the rules, by the steps that were laid down by the government.
Yeah, it is amazing. We thank God. If you remember the very first time we arrived at Olomunyi carrying that kind of food, that people have stayed for months without going to the market, and they are only used to milk alone and water, without food, any solid food. So you can even comprehend the joy of those ladies and those men receiving food, free food that can last a family a month.
Today, as leaders of the community, we have learned enormous lessons from this pandemic. And one of the lessons that I have learned is that there is need to invest in a community trainings to build their resilience. There is need for us to invest in programs that are going to build the resilience of communities so that they can become self-reliant and get alternative livelihoods, sources of livelihoods. As opposed to just looking at the cows and the goats, there is need for our community to diversify their sources of income. For example, there is need not just to introduce agriculture, but to introduce smart agriculture that will use less water, but produce more crops in the community. There is need to continue investing in programs that will provide clean water, so that whenever we are faced with such a situation again, we are able, the community is able to stand and respond to any situation. We must acknowledge that community is in tandem. Programs are in tandem to what we are speaking today and to what the world requires, and what it's looking at the community needs. It's addressing the question of how communities should respond to these pandemics moving forward. When I look at the training that we offer to the water committees, that it will help them is a software training that will help them to maintain the water facilities that they have been given, so that they can sustain them beyond, as opposed to depending on an outsider to come and maintain or to come and manage for them. So I like the fact that today we are responding to the need of water, the need to diversify the sources of income through the beadwork of our women and through smart agriculture.
Since we filmed this conversation just a few weeks ago, Kenya has entered a third, more devastating wave of COVID-19. Duncan shared with me the other day that the virus is hitting closer and closer to home, and that more and more people are getting it in the villages. This virus has been relentless, and the urgency for these projects has never been higher. We know that these projects will not only address the physical needs of the community, but they'll bring a new wave of hope that says after a year of wading through this challenge, that we are still here and that we're in this together. As we listen to these next three stories from Deputy Chief Ruth, Village Elder Latan Kumari, and Village Savings and Loan Leader Elizabeth Schul, I encourage you to start reflecting on what role you can play in their story. How can you come alongside them in their vision to care for their community and see their people thrive? This next guest is an inspiration to me. I first met Chief Ruth last February before the pandemic closed everything down. She is one of the first female chiefs in the Maasai tribe and is an advocate for educating the youth so that poverty can be eradicated. Ruth shares about the challenges she and her community have faced this year and her hope for the future.
I'm Ruth Saruni, Assistant Chief, Orini Sublocation in Ngorika Division, and I have 8 villages in my sublocation, one of them being Enkutoto, and a few of my roles as an Assistant Chief to ensure order is kept in my community and security, I work with my village elders and Nyumba Kumi initiative to ensure that no insecurity issues in my area. I also take part in monitoring education for young girls and boys. Last year, we had a few problems that we encountered during the COVID-19 season that really brought a lot of problems to our children and actually to almost everybody. For our children, for our school-going children, our schools were closed for almost a whole year because of the disease. During that period, our children stayed at home. Most of our girls got pregnant, and January this year, others did not even attend to school, but we are doing all we can to ensure that they go back to school even after giving birth. We are still working to ensure all our girls go back to school and our boys also go back to school. For my community, it's really a very tough time during the COVID-19. People did not have even their needs. Food was scarce, school fees for kids, and even food for animals was also scarce. The main problem we have is water. We have more than 1,000 people in the area, and all of them have to go for more than 5 kilometers to fetch water, which is very hard. If only we can get water, food will be enough, because our people will be able even to start farming if water will be available. We have to walk for a very long distance, even for the animals. We have to walk for a very long distance to get water. As a female leader, I have a vision for my community that in the future we need to have educated ladies, young men, and I wish our girls and boys get education so that we eradicate poverty in our community in the future. And my wish is if we can get water somewhere very near, our people will get food, because even our animals will be able to get water, and we get their products as food for our people. If we get water nearer, we will be able to even cultivate our farms and we get food, and there will be no poverty to our people.
We are grateful to work alongside leaders who lead with integrity and courage. These men and women know their communities best, and when we invest in their visions, we ensure that the programs promote ownership, dignity, and sustainability. The agriculture programs that we're fundraising for tonight are women-owned and operated. Currently, the women sell their beadwork for a source of income, but when markets close and people lose their jobs, the market for beadwork disappears. We also saw that food prices skyrocketed during the pandemic. leaving many families to live on cow's milk alone. These agriculture projects address the need for resilient income and food security. Women will have the opportunity to work the farm in exchange for food, and the profits from the food that's sold at market or to the community will be invested into the Village Savings and Loan Program, bringing economic opportunity to over 900 women. The Village Savings and Loan Program provides small loans to individuals to reach their own goals, whether that's sending their kids to school or investing in a small business that they have on the side. When the loans are paid back to the Village Savings and Loan Program, the funds are redistributed to a new cohort of women, thus creating a sustainable form of aid within the community. The agriculture programs will also create 9 full-time jobs and provide food security to the entire community, ensuring that 20,000 people have access to a safe, reliable, and affordable food source. These projects have the power to equip entire communities to respond to their own needs in a dignified way. These next 2 stories are from Elizabeth Shul and Mr. Latan Kumari. I have known Elizabeth for many years, and if you've been around, you've probably seen her in some of our events. Elizabeth and her community of 12,000 people received clean water for the first time on January 25th of this year, which unlocked a greater vision to see her community food secure and bringing in new jobs. And then you will meet village elder, Mr. Latan Kumari, whose story will inspire generations to come, and whose vision and generosity is impacting thousands of lives today. Trust me, his words and his actions will never be forgotten.
Ore enkarna kaji Elizabeth, nara enoleshen, nara emembai oonkuseron. Ore enduata naata ashu enkidetide naa ekiyieu kira nkuseron kiata ntokitin naayaka yiok ele meitai le corona, eyawua ntokitin itadoyie ntokitin kumok. Ore ninye enkisuma oonkera itadoyie, etupukutwo yiok nkera kumok te sukuul naa ilo meitai le corona oyawua. Ore enkae toki naa nijo etiu maisha toormareita, itadoyie oleng amu ore oshi nkibaruani nikipuo netadoitie esiai nikitushukunye, neeku mokure epuo enoshi kwapi nikipuo aamirisho, nikidol ajo entoki ena eyawua ena siai hasara. Eyaka yiok hasara oleng, nikiyieu naa ore enduata ang toonkuseron kiyieu naaji nikitum ele shamba amu kitoki ailepunye yiok, keeku ore tenewueji ekimirr nena puka nemitoki anyamal intoiwuo amu keeku esiai naa kigerr iltung'anak kumok naa keeku esiai naa mintoki anyamal tiang'. Neeku nena nduat naaji nikiata nikiyieu kira community oonkuseron. Ore taa ena naa ore osokoni likiinyang' naa osokoni le Kajiado. Naa ore ele sokoni le Kajiado enkolong nabo kipuo te wiki amu kegol tikit ninye napuoyieki naa keya nilau tikit ata iyata mpisai nilo ainyang'ishore, neeku kegol tikit oleng. Neeku ilo sokoni oshi kipuo, neeku inewueji oshi kipuo enkinyang'a oo mpuka. Nalotu ewueji e sukuul, ore enewueji e sukuul sidai naaji tenikitum ena maendeleo ang olchamba amu kisaidia yiok ata sukuul. Ore enaare kisaidia yiok sukuul amu tenikitum ilo shamba naa kisaidia sukuul.
I'm Josephine Selia. I'm 20 years old. I got a scholarship in high school, which has enabled me to complete my secondary education. Then later, I got another scholarship. Now I'm pursuing early childhood education in my Institute of Professional Studies at Kajiado with my dad.
Ndawishoyie ene naa asi natodua toonkera napoito tine tenewueji ntasati napoito kanisa naa lashumpa paata ootang'asa apa aisapotaki iyiok tenewueji tolchani. Neeku kidulo doi aing'orisho. Nijo kiing'or kuna ang'itie natii enewueji kumok nemeeta sukuul nemeeta kanisa. Nejo etumoki apa kulo tung'anak aing'asie najing apa ina siai. Naiguana ake sinanu openy itu ninye atiki ormarei lai naamua paitau ina rubata. Ore paekai 4 naa sukuul 3 naa kanisa nabo. Neshukunye olorere tine ele kijiji, neshukunye nkera. Etii naa irbarnot oidipa university naa tenewueji iterutua nursery. Neeku nashukoki sinanu Enkai enashe amu atodua ajo aibung'aki enkaina emurua olarikok lainei. Ore enda aji Busia naa county natesheta. Ore kuna kulie are 3 naa CDF natesheta. Neeku nadol sinanu ajo kenyorri apa nena nataasa. Najoki Enkai ashe. Naitoki sii aton ormarei aliki kinyorrikino sii pookin. Neeku ina toki apa atodua irkasin apa lelo kera naapoito enkop nalakua nenya enkolong nenya enkijiape. Neeku aiko nejia. Neeku maata kulie kumok nemaata oltung'ani latuutaka, Enkai ake natuutaka maata likae tung'ani latuutaka. Naa Enkai ashukoki enashe. Ore naaji atang'amutua sinanu ilarikok lainei le sukuul neng'amu le kanisa nikiaku tenebo. Adol ajo atamayiana Enkai tine. Enapa duata ai. Ore taa peeku ena rishata naa enotoki enkare, kajo naaji kayieu naa ketumi likae moruo obo oitau siinye enkiti rubata naokieki enkare. Peemeeku naa kenotoki enkare nemetumi eneokieki. Neeku naa kamayiana doi. Kamayiana taa amu itu amiraki enewueji kaishia ake toltau sidai. Naa kajo kemayiana ake sininche amu aidipa atodua irmatunda lenye. Ore ena tito tenakata naa nanu naisuma. Ore Enkai nagira alaaki sinanu nena silen nashukoki Enkai enashe nashukoki irpayiani oshi oisumita. Neeku amu mee pooki ake paatum entoki tenaa enkutuk ai epiki. Tenetum dii enkerai ai eretoto tendewueji nayiolou ake sinanu ajo Enkai natalaaka ilo mugie. Neeku pooki naaji Enkai nayieu nabo kayieu enkiturroto emurua. Enkiturroto emurua amu nena dii masaa naagira aaponu. Naa etejo apa irmaasai ledukuya mee tumoto nagol, barata. Peirorieki sininche paa ore enkiti ruata naishooki enkare neyiolou ajo mee likae doi tumoto. Neeku keyieu tenaa kebori amu inakata naa inosari. Neeku maata ilomon kumok. Maata ilomon kumok.
I first learned of Mr. Latan Kumari and his story last February when we met. His love for his community, his deep understanding of his daughter's worth, and his vision for what's possible has inspired us all. He's taught us to live courageously, to give sacrificially, and to believe even in the face of adversity that there is hope for a better future. When we interviewed Mr. Latan Kumari, he shared that giving the land was a huge leap of faith and that he hoped one day it would bless his community. He also shared how happy he is to still be alive and witness the benefits of his gift. I can only imagine the joy that he will feel when he sees his community access clean water for the first time, or sees the women cultivating the land that he donated in order to feed his entire village. Tonight, we have the opportunity to invest in these men and women's visions and ensure that the global pandemic does not drive people back into extreme poverty, but instead is the catalyst for new ideas and opportunities. We are so grateful for your partnership tonight and helping us bring clean water to Enkutoto and a sustainable agriculture project to Enkutoto, Alamuni, and Inkusiran to ensure that each of these communities has food security and income security. We want to end tonight with a message of hope. We asked many of you, what do you hope for this year? And we're going to share your message now. On behalf of community, we hope for you a year of health, a year of opportunities, and a year of connection with those you love. Thank you and have a good night.
I am hopeful that Lord will bring a good life after this pandemic.
I'm hoping for a better year, 2021. Yeah, especially in economic terms, yeah.
I'm hopeful for more grants, more partnerships to help us really work with our partner communities to achieve their goals.
I'm hopeful for my to do well in my studies, and also to be an ordinary person, and also to fulfill my dreams. Yeah.
And I also be hopeful that I'll be a successful person in future. Like I want to be a lawyer, so I'm sure that I will be successful and become who I want in future.
I'm hopeful that people will develop their own mechanics and their own ability to adapt changes and to be able to stand firm in the changing world.
I am hopeful for a return to normal that includes some filtering of what we really want that new normal to be.
I'm hopeful that these lessons are things that we can carry forward with us into the following years and into future challenges, that we will be better listeners and more deeply engaged in our spaces together, and that we will be stronger and more resilient.
I am hopeful for a more humanistic world.
I'm hopeful for a more mindful perspective and just a kinder world.
I am hopeful for health and growth and unity.
I am hopeful for a year of health and spending time with family and friends.
What I'm most hopeful for is, again, human connection. I'm hopeful for hugs. I've been hug hungry for about a year now, and so I'm really looking forward to hugging everybody that I know and that I love.
I'm hopeful that we can lean into our shared experiences from this last year in order to build a more equitable future.